All right, folks, welcome to Secrets of the Ancients. If you're curious about the mysteries that lie buried in our past, well, you've come to the right place. To watch this and future videos, support us by subscribing, liking and commenting. Your engagement really does help us keep exploring these age-old secrets, so don't forget to get involved. Thanks for joining me on this journey. Professor Evan Watkins' theory suggests that the ancients were able to cut stone by harnessing the power of the sun. Now, a lot of people, myself included, don't really believe that simple hand tools were enough to create some of the incredible stone structures we see all over the world today. These sites range from Machu Picchu in South America to the Giza Plateau in Egypt. Some people think ancient aliens were responsible, but I've never seen any solid proof of that idea. Of course, you can interpret old texts, carvings and structures in all kinds of ways. Personally, though, I think there was once a highly advanced civilization that collapsed at the end of the last ice age, leaving traces of its technology scattered around the globe. One thing's for sure, some ancient monuments show signs of unbelievably advanced stonework. But I don't think it was done with electricity or power tools. I think they used smarter methods, taking advantage of natural forces like the sun, wind, water, or even sound. If they really used natural forces, there wouldn't be much physical evidence left behind, just the results, like those incredibly detailed granite vases and those perfectly cut stone walls with irregular shapes that fit together like puzzle pieces. Stone isn't easy to work with. It's nothing like wood or metal. Hard stones like granite or diorite are made of tough interlocking crystals that wear down tools before they even leave a mark. The ancient stone and metal tools we're told they used would barely scratch that kind of rock. So there's clearly something missing in our understanding of ancient technology. Working with such hard stone today requires diamond-tipped tools and lots of cooling fluids. It's slow and difficult. That's why there's a theory that the ancients might have used sound to get the job done. Things like vibrating tuning forks, sonic drilling, and acoustic levitation suggest that sound can be used to achieve incredible results. And scientifically that's possible, not just with modern tools, but even with basic ancient materials. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed this dive into the mysteries of the ancients, be sure to follow Secrets of the Ancients and keep an eye out for our future videos. There's always more to discover. So, how does sonic drilling work? Well, when sound vibrations at a certain frequency are sent through a drill, or even something as simple as a metal tube, it can vibrate like a super-fast hammer. The drill doesn't even need to spin much because the vibrations do the cutting. It's actually faster than normal drilling, causes less wear on the tool, and, uses less energy. A large tuning fork, for example, could be fitted with a cutting tip, whether it's a drill or just a copper tube. With the right setup, this method can even cut granite. The frequency of the cutting rod has to match the resonance of the tuning fork. Here's what happens. The arms of the fork vibrate side to side, which makes the bottom of the U-shape move up and down. That sends vibrations along the cutting rod, creating standing waves with maximum vibration at the tips and a stable point in the middle where you can attach a handle. For example, a tuning fork 30 centimeters long and 3 centimeters thick might resonate at 1100 Hz. To match that, you'd need a cutting rod about 1.5 meters long. Interestingly, the fork and rod together look a lot like a trident symbol, or even the ancient Egyptian ankh. If those tools were sharpened, they could have been used as actual cutting devices. In Egyptian myths, the god Horus is often associated with spears. But maybe the best example of sonic drilling is something we've seen for thousands of years, the scepter. This object appears everywhere in Egyptian art and hieroglyphs. It's a long, straight staff with a forked end, sometimes with an ornate tip at the other. We usually see it as a symbol of power and authority tied to religion and mythology. But what if it was actually a real tool, one whose true purpose was forgotten over time? Mainstream historians and archaeologists often claim that simple stone and metal tools were used to create massive stone blocks and detailed carvings. They base this largely on how stonework is shown in carvings from the 5th dynasty up to the 26th. But when you look closely at carved granite, it's clear those basic tools couldn't have made certain features, especially cored holes. Look at holes that don't go all the way through granite, and you'll often notice a deeper groove around the edge. That's a strong sign the hole was made with a hollow metal tube. Here's the problem. We're told those holes were made by hand tools and simple pipes. But cutting granite like that only works if you have a constant flow of water. Without it, the drill would clog up with advanced drilling methods. A hollow metal tube can cut through granite faster and more efficiently than you might expect. Ancient Egyptian art often shows people using very simple tools to carve vases and stone bowls. But even if they used sand as an abrasive, it just wouldn't have been strong enough to grind through extremely hard stones like granite or diorite, not with the level of precision we see in the surviving artifacts. Some of those ancient pieces and the tool marks on them are unbelievably precise. What's even more fascinating is that many of the most impressive and hardest stonework pieces come from the Old Kingdom, some even from before the 5th dynasty, with a few dating back to pre-dynastic times. It's only from the 5th dynasty onward that we see tools and methods that might have been good enough for shaping softer stones like sandstone or limestone. The oldest known depiction of a rock drill appears in a hieroglyph labelled U24 from the Gardner sign list. It first shows up in a 3rd dynasty tomb. But some researchers think this isn't a regular drill at all. They suggest it might actually show a kind of tuning fork tool rather than a simple hand-powered drill. Some people even believe there are ancient Egyptian carvings of tuning forks with wires, similar to ones seen on statues of Isis and Anubis. If that's true, it might mean the Egyptians had a way of making forks vibrate at a certain frequency for long enough to cut stone, without having to hammer away at it over and over. There's also a curious old story. In an archived email from 1997, someone claimed that an American friend once got access to a sealed storage room in an Egyptian museum. Inside, she supposedly found hundreds of what she described as tuning forks, some only about 8 inches long, others 8 or 9 feet long. They looked like giant wooden slingshots or forks, but with a wire stretched between the prongs. She insisted they weren't iron, but steel. Each one was shaped like a big U with a handle almost like a pitchfork. When the wire was connected, the forks vibrated for an incredibly long time. It made her wonder if these tools once had hard cutting tips at the bottom, used for carving stone once they were set vibrating. Of course, there's no way to verify that old email, but it's fascinating, especially when you think about those matching carvings of wired tuning forks on statues of Isis and Anubis. There's also a Sumerian cylinder seal that clearly shows a musician holding a tuning fork, suggesting this technology might not have been a modern invention at all. It could date back thousands of years before the 18th century, when tuning forks were officially invented. Recent studies at ancient stone sites around the world suggest that ancient people had a surprisingly advanced understanding of acoustics. They even seem to take sound into account when they designed their structures. This relatively new field, archaeoacoustics, has revealed interesting findings at sites like Stonehenge in England, Adam's Calendar in South Africa, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and of course the Great Pyramid in Egypt. All these places share distinctive acoustic properties that could amplify sound waves. Those vibrations might have helped keep tools humming at a steady frequency, which could explain some of the advanced stone-cutting techniques that still puzzle historians today. Finally, I just want to say thanks so much for listening and joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this, please consider following Secrets of the Ancients and keep an eye out for future videos.